Da 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 da. Oh, look, a free update is available. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give up on the beard experiment, guys. It's been like 2 weeks. I'm looking like a transient. It's looking ridiculous right there. I would not give a single solitary fuck. I got that Vince Staples song "Shitsville" stuck in my head. Welcome to Shitsville. Uh, it's fucking for real. All right, hold on. I'm gonna link all the people, and I'll say a little bit about the different communities that we're in there. All right, so we call it a live editing stream. Cool, and I'm gonna set it as the topic in our primary IRC channel, which is not for y'all to know. And then let me. Who else needs to know about this? So I let LRH know about it. I'll let our homies in Teens for Christ know about this. Let me see. Wait, who is? Oh, okay, that was a message from yesterday. On Freenode, I'm gonna let the MDE channel know. Hell yeah. And the Not Math channel. I like those guys. Then I go to a Slack server that's run by my friend Jenk, and I'm just gonna let those people know that they can watch a live science fiction editing. So what could be more exciting than editing that live science fiction? Fucking amazing right there. And I'm also going to let. Am I still on Sally? Where is Sally? So there's a network full of ASCII artists right here called Sally. There's like a lot of French guys and so forth in there. I love ASCII art, which is basically where like terminal art, where you have like color codes and so forth. All right, hold on. I'm missing chats from Chad. Lulz, my thumbnail. I fell for the clickbait. I seriously did. What thumbnail are we talking about there? Um, Wait, was it like the fucking spacesuit? Because that book already exists. All right, hold on. Let me see what the thumbnail is here. I hope I'm not linking some crazy porno shit without knowing it there. All right, so let's. I'm gonna let my Discord server know. Boom. Space Tards is the name of this story. Real talk. And we are taking viewer suggestions right there. I'm gonna let the JRE Discord know about it. I love those guys. I'm gonna let the journalist EW Discord know about this right here. Yeah, let me get those people involved in my life. God, that could be fucking amazing or amazingly awful right there. I'm gonna holler at the hip hop Discord tonight. I expect a huge waiting for my post from yeah. So Chad apparently has something going on like with Too High to Comply, and they're gonna do it up big there. All right, let me see how. Yeah, so I'm a verified journalist on the Journalist Excellence Worldwide site. So yeah, that's one of my greatest accolades for all my journalistic work out there. So those guys are just fantastic. What Dustin has put together is just like an amazing assemblage of some of the finest journalistic minds in creation. And together, we're bringing journalistic excellence worldwide. So definitely check out that Discord server. You can see Chad in our thing. He's the big boss of the, what is it, Red Politics Discord, they're calling it now? Yeah, Real Politics Discord. Uh, so they're out there. And just, yeah, not a lot of people watching this at present. But this is what we're going to do at this time. All right, let me see if I can make this chat larger. So shout outs to that font that looks extra heavy or bold. Yeah, I just wanted to have giant words that people could read. You know, like it's this. You should be able to read this at 320 resolution and so forth. It's one of the reasons why we're using this old antique MacBook. Okay. Well, I think people are filing in and taking their seats for this thing. So it is time. Every morning we do a tarot reading. Except I didn't turn on the camera. So hold on, let me see if it'll just blink into being here. All right, there we go. Then we can do a zoom in. Hell yeah, zoom shot. Okay, these were our cards from yesterday. It was like an interesting tableau of whatever there. And see if people will join. I just pinged my server. Yeah, that'd be fucking rad. Oh, look at this. Dust in the wind. So, yeah, I was talking with somebody the other day about tarot cards and my love of archetypes. And we got into a conversation where she was like, archetypes are okay, but, you know, I really only care about stuff that has an emotional resonance to it. And my argument was that you can't have an archetype unless people are resonating with it emotionally. The reason why archetypes exist is because it speaks to an emotional thing that's buried deep in a lot of people. Really the language of symbols and archetypes is what the tarot is all about there. And we're going to find out with our cards for today. So here is the first one. Ooh, there have been a lot of cups in our pulls for this story. I'm telling you that. So initially, we have the Eight of Cups. Then we have the Knight of Wands. Ooh. And then we have the Nine of Discs. So these are all pretty good draws, to tell you the truth here. So the Eight of Cups is a lot about leaving things behind. So if you look at the way that the Eight of Cups is set up there, 8 is a lot of cups to have in your set. 8 is pretty accomplished. Like if you want to see the cups as being full of emotion, having 8 is pretty solid. The scale of these guys is from 1 to 10. So you're almost there. But we can see from the way that the cups are set up here, something is still missing. And that something has left somebody to go off in search of something else. Right? And this is, I think all of us right now can keenly feel that something is missing. And we've gone on a search for something new. So in the chat, we see like our liberties from Diligent Escape right there. And then a shout out to, we've got some new folks here. Adjective Noun, Embrace Freedom, and Diligent Escape. Okay, so this is about having a lot, but it's not enough. And setting off under another one, under the watchful eye of the, it actually looks like the slumbering eye of the moon right there. So the Knight of Wands, we've gone over this a few times, but the suit of wands is basically the big dick suit. It's about creative power, movement, charging forward, and sort of being led around by your dick in this case. So this is a romantic reading when you really see there. It is being unsatisfied, potentially, with your current emotional situation, whether it's a man or a woman or a dog or a horse, whatever is working for you. And then taking the Knight of Wands, I want to say that this is you, the viewer, right now. This represents your status where you're sallying forth all full up with energy, maybe heedless of what's going on, aware of the Illuminati right here in the background, always present. And then the Nine of Pentacles represents a life of luxury and leisure and lesbians. It's a really powerful card right there. And so this could represent the destination of that emotional search right there in a woman of money and influence, often an older woman, like full of lascivious curves and fancy possessions and so forth. So, and with it, we also find the tyranny of the idol. So yeah, things to consider for your reading, but I see good financial prospects on our horizon for me and my viewers right here. So what do we have right here? Excited for this reading. Back to one language, pre-Diluvian. Yeah, it would be so interesting to see what efforts would take place to unify the world under a single language. I'll tell you a story that I saw on Reddit today. This may or may not be true because it's fucking plebit, but a company like a renting company that owns a bunch of condominiums, sent out this condescending letter about how they still expected rent to be paid, even though ain't nobody making no kind of fucking money, no way, no how. So somehow they expected people to come up with the money. And so they sent out this letter to everybody, and they didn't BCC everybody. So lo and behold, all the people that they're renting to just started emailing each other, and they organized a rent strike together. So now they're not paying any fucking money. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Knight of Malta riding on Blucifer. Hell yeah. There is so much, like if you want to get into the esoteric era symbology in it, even in the Rider-Waite deck, there's just tons of it shoehorned in there. And then we also, from time to time, will pull out the Thoth deck, and that's where it really gets hectic with crazy ass. I actually am a member of the Knights of what the fuck? How do you even say it? It's like Taludi or whatever. When I say a member, I should specify that I'm a member of their meetup. So Stratum says Lode has the worst beard ever. I am not convinced he's only 19 years old. Yeah, it's awful, man. What am I like? It only comes in here, and then it doesn't fucking connect on here, and it's like so. I don't know. I wanted to see what would happen with a beard if I tried to grow one, and I'm sad I did. I really and truly. So renters of the world unite and hit reply all. That's fucking fantastic. That story got my dick hard with a little solidarity right there. I do honestly. I think we should have canceled rent by now in the United States. Rent, commercial mortgage, and so forth. If the economy is not functioning, it seems ludicrous to expect people to pay rent. And this is obviously I have to pay fucking rent here at the glamorous LRH Studios, and that's probably why I feel this way. But still, so Diligent Escape enjoys researching history and apocryphal and esoteric there. My favorite of the heresies is Triclavianism. I love it because I'm a gyp myself. So the idea of gypsies coming by and stealing one of the 4 nails intended to nail up Christ, and then getting carte blanche to steal forevermore is, I believe it. It sounds true to me. Okay, but yeah, if you like that, one of my stories on my website, all my shit is available for free. If you go to zachzyz.com, the books are pretty good. There is a lot of arcane symbology in my book, The Master Arcanist, which is about an old wizard who's going blind. And then I have a tarot-inspired story called The Bishop's Daughter. So, problem is that our government is really a mafia. Well, don't you think that any kind of large concerted control group essentially becomes a mafia? I just don't think it's possible to wield a great deal of power without there being essentially strongmen and essentially like leg breaking involved. It's just kind of how it goes. But let's think about our story right here. All right, so this is a live editing stream. Today we're working on my novella, I would say. This is SPACETARDS. So this is the story about a crew of tardigrade augmented recon demolition salvage space marines who are basically the idea here is that from time to time in the deepest reaches of space there will be shimmering and almost invisible halos of a phenomenon they call herald radiation. And one of the novel parts about herald radiation is it's very difficult to detect with sensors. And the other part of it is that it disables any kind of fine electronics that are nearby. It will just kill a starship fucking dead if it attempts to approach next to it. No kind of computers work. Basically, nothing more fine than like the detonator for like one of those push thing dynamite things will work because of this radiation. And so these alien hulks appear and then they disappear, and nobody's sure exactly why, but they definitely want to know what's going on. They're full of advanced technology and just weird shit, and we want to know what's going on. So in this story, what the Australian Space Navy has done is they've begun developing space marines that are augmented with tardigrade DNA so that they can resist huge amounts of radiation. And they send them to these ship that they call whales in like this fully analog spacecraft where it's all the controls are manual. It uses like alcohol thrusters to maneuver and so forth. And they head into these whales with no electrical technology. Like they're lighting their way with like these chemical lamps on, and they wear spacesuits that are huge armored spacesuits. They weigh like 200 kilograms or like 150 kilograms in the story. And because they can't use the electric heaters that spacesuits normally use, they're studded with radioisotope heaters, like the ones that we put on the Cassini probe and so forth. And so this is a story about them exploring what they're calling Pinchy the whale, which is the largest whale that's ever appeared. It was so large that it attempted to like jump into real space, it wound up getting sheared in half by its portal, like a turd getting pinched off and sucked back in. So they call it Pinchy the whale. All right, what do we got in the chat right here? So Sunshine is asking, are you doing readings for people? So Jira says, SPACETARDS are real and they need the help of us, the viewers. Donate to Zach to help SPACETARDS. Your contribution will be greatly appreciated. Final Fantasy II Blue Whale. Hell yeah. I'm fucking out of here. All right. Well, we're going to get into the story. So far, we learned most of the stuff that I just told you. And the SPACETARDS have... so basically, they're on their own. When they get onto the ship, there's no radio. They communicate using like analog stuff. They have... and I'll tell you one thing about the genetic altering that they do to these guys. They come out not too bright as a consequence of it. One of the things that's interesting about genetic manipulation is when we change one thing, there's a cascade effect. It tends to change a lot of things. Like you think about silver foxes, where we did this long breeding program where we were selecting for these traits like submission and friendliness and so forth, and we start to see all these corresponding physical changes. Their ears begin to droop. Their facial structure changes and becomes more childish and so forth. And one of the things that we find with this is that when you start monkeying with DNA, changes echo, and there are often unintended consequences and so forth. And in this story, one of the consequences of being infused with this DNA and modified so that they're like myostatin is inhibited, so they're just rippling with muscle, and they're short and dense. They're not too big, so they can crawl through these like tiny spaces inside of these whales. One of the consequences is that they come out almost, in this story, they're not retarded. They're not like fully developmentally disabled. But in this part of the future, where everybody has been gene augmented and genetically engineered and so forth, compared to everybody else, these guys are definitely riding the short bus over to the whale. So during this edit, one of the things that we'll be looking at is we're trying to set a consistent tone for how smart they are. We want to be like Homer Simpson seasons 2 through 8. We don't want to be like Homer Simpson season fucking 18, where he's just a drooling mouth breather. Okay. It's whales, and nobody can pronounce or read any of the names. So I would say that these guys, they would be on the level where they're not subliterate, but close to there. And we'll try to, they have like a lot of difficulty keeping track of many things going on at the time. And there's definitely a gradation between the Marines. Like one of the Marines, Bonzo, is definitely the smartest among them, but he also gets into the most trouble there. The main character of the story is Gunnery. Their gunnery sergeant. And the premise there is that Whale, like they tried to give these guys ranks and so forth for their platoons, but they wouldn't do it. The Tards either think of themselves as a Marine or as Gunny. They just don't. And a lot of the inspiration for this story came from a Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman story, like Dragonlance. That whole fucking Dragons of Winter, Twilight. I don't remember how all those things go. But one of the things I always loved in those stories were the Gully Dwarves, who were like this subrace of dwarves that literally could not count higher than 2. But they were nonetheless like a fun and interesting. So it's interesting to have protagonists that, though they are limited in their intelligence and scope, are nonetheless interesting and have wants and desires and have struggles and so forth. Now, with that said, let's begin editing. So note on this is that the way that I edit is by reading each line aloud to try and pick out things that don't sound right. So from time to time, I'm going to glance over at this other screen that I have over here and take a look at your chats and everything. I won't get edits and stuff like right away when I'm concentrating. So I'll try to implement what seems reasonable to me. We'll have like a little discussion. Things I'm especially looking for are things that are obviously factually wrong. I'm looking for things that knock you out of the story. I'm looking for sentences that you just don't buy. You're like, I don't think you can get away with that, Zach. And there's going to be plenty of them because this is a rough draft. It has not been edited before. Normally my works have been edited like 2 or 3 times. And from time to time, you will see me like very quiet as I'm like trying to work out how to fix a fucking sentence. And some of these things we will just struggle with and so forth. But this is a fast story. It's not meant to win a fucking Pulitzer or anything like that. It's too big to sell to a magazine. Generally, if you want to sell a story to a science fiction magazine, it should be between 5,000 and 8,000 words. This is 28,000 words. So nobody will buy this. I will wind up publishing it myself, paying an editor to do it, and we'll do all our own art and everything. So, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be amazingly perfect, but I still want it to be the best story that we can make with our limited resources. So he says, I'm loving some of these chats right here. Adjective Noun says, these Marines sound like they have ops in a Freenode channel. I could not agree more. All right, hold on. Let me kill whatever's making that fucking sound. Because I don't want to hear what people have to fucking say on Outlook 365 at this time. All right, I think that should kill that sound. But yeah, no, I just don't give a fuck about anybody emailing me at 6:43 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, like nothing is important at this time. So Diligent Escape says that Bonzo is probably the conspiracy theorist. He already is. We already had a chapter where he's the one who's like, why are we this way? But in fact, all the Marines are a little bit suspicious of the fact that they just keep getting sent into these very dangerous situations, which they have literally been born, although they're not born, they've literally been built for. And yeah, we get a little bit into them, wondering about what they're really all about later on. But yeah, all right. So in this last chapter, the last chapter was where we got a little bit into the surface of the whale. We talk a little bit about their some of their equipment that they go into there. They have fancy symbols on their helmets called heralds. Like each tard on the back of his helmet, it has a little pictograph of something that they like so they can identify each other in the dark. This is about them trying to fly their rats. And this is them in the very first chamber trying to breach the door. And one of the Marines, Lefty, has a bad feeling about just blowing the door up, which is their standard operating procedure. They just blow up a door with high explosives and then try to get through. Because one of the things about these Space Marines is they don't know how to open any of the doors in whales. Like maybe it's obvious the aliens, if there are aliens that are on the whales, but they don't know how to open these fucking doors. They have to like cut through every single door or blast through it with high explosives or burn it with a torch. They can't figure out how to open the doors even in these alien vessels where nothing makes sense. So I love that idea of they just can't even they can't use the three seashells there. So let's get into it. All right, thank you everybody for joining me, and we shall begin. Yeah, we gotta thank. Oh, shout out to Negi right there. We gotta thank Chad who didn't add everyone in his Discord. I don't even add everybody in my Discord when I start doing this. So we talk about the hulls of whales, which is this material called ghost skin. And this is a gelt whale, which is like a play on this kind of Jewish chocolate. Those like little coins where they're gold on the outside, shiny on the outside, and then gold inside. So when a whale doesn't have any lighting in it, they call it a gelt whale. So Chapter 6, SPACETARDS by Zach ZYZ. No one was dead when they got back, and Gunny clapped Bonzo on the shoulder, a rare gesture of praise. If he wasn't always outsmarting himself, Bonzo could have been a halfway decent Gunny. What scale? Bonzo signed. And so here, when they're talking about scale, they're talking about on the surface of the skin of the whales. If you hold your head exactly 1,033 millimeters to 1,036 millimeters away from the surface of the hull, you can perceive these golden patterns in what is otherwise like the opaque black surface. And the Tards superstitiously believe that you can tell a lot about the inside of a whale by the pattern that's on it. They're intensely superstitious. Oh, wait, you saw Load is live and your YouTube recommends? That's amazing. Hell yeah. So Gunny thrust his index and pinky fingers forward, then craned his wrist back. A sign that wasn't in any USL dictionary. Bullshit. Bonzo raised his bushy eyebrows, but he didn't force the issue. Ready to pop, Gunny, Bango signed. There was a neat spiral of explosive rope with a 60-second igniter bulb clipped to the first in the chain. Explosive high-X rope. Yeah, we don't need... ready to prime. I like the sound of that. There was a neat spiral of explosive high-X rope. Adhered to the disc. So I wonder if like a... This Bango worked neat. Gunny was going to miss him. Let's see. Okay, so here we change that up a little bit. So ready to pop, Gunny, Bango signed. There was a neat spiral of explosive high-X rope adhered to the disc they hoped was a door. Gunny hoped was a door. A 60-second igniter bulb was ready to prime. This Bango worked neat. Gunny was going to miss him. Gunny peered at the disc, tapping the armored Okay, so there, we say on his trunk, but we've only like explained that his helmet has a trunk once previously. So I think that's somebody might have missed that earlier. So we'll leave that out. So Gunny peered at the disc, tapping the armored fingertips of his gauntlet on the jawline of his helmet. It should be a Oh, I don't like that we have a pronoun here. This was the most likely ingress spot. He'd blown vaguely similar discs on other whales with good results. On the other whales, usually these discs were relatively thin and led to a series of 3 small chambers that were a good place to set up an airlock with quick seal and vac sheet. Cool, we can edit those words out. But that was the thing about whales. When you started thinking you knew something, that was when you were about to chuck up really bad and get everyone deaded. Gunny clunked over to Bango and trunked up. She's too. So here, when they say trunked up, because they can't use radios and they need to communicate in vacuum, the technology that they use is they have little like conic protrusions on other sides of their helmet that creates like a resonant cavity, and there's a little spool attached to a magnetic disc, so they will literally like clip in to the resonant cavity on the other marine, and it works like a can on a string. And I did like a little bit of research. This would actually work in outer space. Let me see. Are we communicating how noisy all their interactions and movements must be owing to their metal suits? We don't hear it. They're currently in hard vacuum, right? Which is why they're like trunking up and so forth. So Diligent Escape says quantum entangled subspace receivers, but therein lies the rub, because any sort of high technology just falls apart in these fucking whales. We're literally like, it's a gimmick to force these guys to like a steampunk level, even though I think steampunk is fucking horseshit. But it's the premise of this unnamed or this named Herald radiation or whatever is that human technology doesn't function in it. So like one of the big things that I wanted with this series was to have the limitation that all their solutions had to be chemical in nature for the most part, or purely mechanical, and that they don't have the option to rely on anything that involves a transistor, anything that involves like a qubit or a fucking integrated circuit, anything with wires coming out of it. They ain't got that for the most part. So route of ingress instead of ingress spot. Let's try that. Let me see. Do we even need the other words? This was the most likely ingress. I think that's fine. Like we can do that without route of there, and wherever we can in our text, we want to remove unnecessary words, just because like every word you read is like a step that you have to take, and so many different drugs to level up. So I don't do a lot with drugs in this, except that if they succeed in their mission, they all get to go to what they call nod, which is kind of implied that they're all whacked on heroin. But they don't. I haven't written in drugs. Well, there are some drugs actually in this, now that I think about it. But yeah, they could be like taking stims and fucking tripping balls, all kinds of shit to make this happen, like anti-fear drugs, and that's an interesting idea. Gunny clunked over. So there we have, he's clunking over, but he would hear the sound of his own footsteps there. So always within the story, we do want to keep kind of the heaviness of their movements, the denseness of the Space Marines, both in terms of their intellect and the heavy gear that they're wearing. But she's too pretty to blow, Bango. Take it all down. Oh, for what, Gunny? Something's chucky. Aye, aye, Gunny, Bango agreed, trusting Gunny's gut. It was strange to hear Bango in the constrained frequencies of the... Oh, cool. It was strange to hear Bango through the constrained frequencies of the trunk wire. He had the deepest voice in the platoon. Platoon. Don't get attached, Gunny reminded himself. You want saw? Lefty signed, indicating he was ready to hook up the pedal-driven ablative disc saw. So this is like a... we don't go deep into this right here, but the idea is that it's like a fucking bicycle type apparatus that's working a giant circular ablative disc, like an angle grinder that they work with like a bicycle pedals. Which I don't know, maybe it would have like some crazy fucking gear ratio or pulley or whatever thing. I don't know that this would actually work, right? I don't know that you could actually do this. The tards are described as having definitely very superhuman strength, right? Like earlier we were talking about how Lefty was in, they're at 2G's gravity right now, and this cycle saw weighs 200 kilos, and he's like lifting it like it's a bouquet of flowers, essentially. So that's pretty fucking strong, man. These guys are, they're not dials. Uh, so Gunny gave the thumbs down, negative. He pounded on the disc with the ham of his fist, ran his tongue over his teeth, held a palm against. The Jim Hadar. Are those the fucking Cardassians? Or I do not know a ton about Star Trek right there. Lance Armstrong would love it. I got to tell you, like I only want my Space Marines to be able to like piss in a cup and come back clean. I don't want the beauty of whale exploration to be tainted. How will we put their accomplishments in the book of? I think there is so in this, if they succeed in their missions and so forth, they get recorded in the good book. So yeah, those records would get stricken if it was found out that they were fucking juicing. Okay, I agree with that. Okay, Gunny gave the thumbs down, negative. He pounded on the disc with the ham of his fist, ran his tongue over his teeth, then held the palm of his gauntlet against the smooth surface and wanged. Okay, so yeah, we're trying to, this is like a big compound sentence here. There's a lot of things that's happening. So what we're looking for right here is, it's like, boom, 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 boom. That thing right there. Boom, 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 boom. So this is, he's trying to feel this fucker out there. Jem'Hadar are shock troops bred to fight, super strong. They're kept in control with some drugs that are pumping through cyborg ports in their necks. It's fucking dope right there. It's a good concept. I like that idea. And we get into this a little bit in this series right there, where when you breed like these fucking super soldiers, you then have to keep those super soldiers in control, right? You can't just like let them run amok. And we shade a little bit into that in the story. So I like that. The idea. One of my favorite, somebody just linked this on the JRE Discord. One of my favorite Bernie memes. I love the one of him in the fucking parka. Once again asking for your financial support, and the one where he's just holding a gun and he's like, "I am no longer asking." Oh, I love that. And then I forget the name of this graffiti writer. But the one where Bernie is like, "I am once again asking for a picture of your tits and pussy, also, or of your pussy and asshole. Also, arch your back so that your tits are also visible." I should follow this guy on fucking Twitter. I think Angie follows him, so I follow. I get some of his posts through him. What's his name? His name's like Self or Slef or Snef or I don't know. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. But apparently super soldier rights are human rights. Could not agree more. They're transhuman, man. Trans rights. He thought about the Valknut scales. An image sprang to mind. A luminous purple fireball scouring the hall like dragon's breath. Yank, Gunny signed. And Yank, Gunny signed, and Mad Yank's eyes lit. He'd been waiting for this. Yank lofted the 100-kilo sledgehammer, eager to go. Okay, so Mad Yank is actually a throwback to a time in my life where I was the foreman of a demolition crew, and I would wade in there with a sledgehammer and just devastate fucking anything that we needed to tear down. And I got the nickname the Mad Yank because I love fucking sledgehammering things. Okay, so yeah, this is just a throwback to the time when I lived in London, and I used to pick up illegal work on a site called the Gumtree, which is their Craigslist. Hell yeah. All right, what do we got here? Yank lofted the 100-kilo sledgehammer, eager to go. Too eager. Gunny signed for Yank to wait. Gunny signed for him to wait, but Yank was already moving towards the door, which was still covered with explosives. Bango was waving his hands no, but Yank had eyes only for his target. Yank was winding up, ready to knock the door into orbit when Gunny's gauntlet had clamped onto the neck of the sledge. Yank looked back in confusion, not understanding why his sledge wouldn't swing. "Wait, you Jupe pigger!" Gunny bellowed, loud enough that a world of fog appeared on the inside of his visor. Bango had his hands over the sides of his helmet, as if covering his ears would help. Yank pivoted to face Gunny, peering back at the door in confusion, not understanding why they'd stopped him. Yeah, we're gonna. They. Not understanding why the center. Yeah, so we use duped here in place of stupid. And then pigger is in place of the word rigor, because riggers are seemed as coarse there. God, I'll never get away with this fucking story. So. Oh yeah. Like I like this story. It's just so ridiculous. So Bango is not a reference to a Basement Jaxx song. It's just like the word bang. Many of the Space Marines have like an O at the end of their name, like Bonzo, Bango. I think actually we almost had to change those two, and we had another one called Bingo, but we had to change his name because there were just too many. It was hard to keep track of who was Bingo and who was Bonzo and who was Bango. I think you could only have two. Because when you have like 23 different characters in a story there, it's better if their names are a little bit further apart. So one of the nice things about this story is that most of the Marines' names in some way correspond to their functionality. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Like there's, the Axeman is called Choppa. Fucking the explosives dude is Bango. And the mission recorder is named Member. So I like this concept. It makes it easy for me to remember who's who in the crazy scenes that happen. "Bomb," Gunny signed, pointing at the door where the explosive charges were still stuck. At last, Yank realized what he'd been about to do. His mouth dropped open and the massive sledge slipped from his gauntlets. It hit the deck just inches from the explosive satchel with a thunk they could feel through the armored soles of their boots. Gunny rolled his eyes, then whopped Yank at the back of the head so hard it nearly knocked him over. Gunny was shaking his head in exasperation. They'd all nearly died half a dozen times, and they weren't even inside the whale yet. I fucking love it. I love it. He just can't get through the fucking door. "Strip it," he signed at the door. Then he trunked up to berate Yank. Lefty would have company on squat duty if either of them survived. They waited while Bango carefully peeled his demolition charges from the door, leaving a spiral of adhesive residue clinging to the disc. Gunny signaled for everyone to fan out. Anything could happen when he started fooling with a whale. The disc could shatter like crystal. It might activate like a giant piston and launch Yank into deep space. It might melt and suck him in. Everything was a gamble. Gunny looked to Lefty, then pointed to Yank, making the sweeping thumb yay or nay sign. That guy right there. I love that I can just on the camera show what the gestures are meant to be, so you can tell me if it sounds like these are the right gestures for that. But yeah, I think that makes sense. So is gravity attaching them to the whale? Yes. We go into this in the previous chapter right there. But on whales, there's usually gravity, but its orientation and its intensity
is kind of a crapshoot. Like some rooms, the gravity is different in one place than a different one. In some rooms, the orientation flips midway through the room and so forth. The whalers, whoever the alien race is in control of this, are said to be like they're in obviously in mastery of some kind of anti-gravity technology. Human beings at this point are not, right? A lot of the story talks about how the scientists, which we call the smarts, who are, by the way, all women, intersectionality. No, they're all women in this timeline. And the smarts are always like trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with these whales, and it's very difficult. So Negi is saying, do you GM games? So I haven't GM'd anything in a long, long time. But I'm thinking Spathiwa and I are developing a game called Rapasaurus that is like a one-on-one RPG that people can just play over fucking Discord, and I'll like swoop them in. I'll like run out the fucking cards live while we're doing it there. So I may start doing that. The problem has just been finding people that want to play it like on a consistent level, because it's weird and it'd be like live and they have to have like a decent microphone. And but let's keep in the story. Okay. All right. So so I agree with Stratum here. We're would like the flipping thumb. What would we call this? What's happening here? Twerking thumb. So it's like a half rotation right there. I like to watch. I don't like to play. I like to watch. Yeah, I'm definitely going to play it online. And my idea for this game is just basically it's like a choose your own adventure game where I'm narrating it and we're using the draw of 3 tarot cards to sort of narrate the way through the journey. Feathered his thumb? I don't think feathered works. Shout outs to Jimmy Flippers and thumb flipping. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's like a flip. That wouldn't be that fast. Yeah, I like the thumb flipping. I also like the Jimmy Flippers. Fucking hit us with it if you got it. But the Joe Biden Jimmy Flipper copy paste is fucking for real. I like that one. Okay, so I do like that. And it's interesting too. Like this is a great thing about this. So much of the story is about the sign language that they're using and like the nonverbal ways that they're communicating. And I love like having a chance to get other people's feedback on what makes sense. Flip your thumb at me. All right. Lefty replied with a thumb pinky wobbling hang 10. Oh, I love this. Like it's fucking, I forget the name of the fighter that did that all the goddamn time. Lefty replied, the Boris Johnson, the thumb pinky wobbling hang 10. Maybe, maybe not. Hit it, Gunny gestured. You sure? Yank signed. Do it, Gunny shot back. Yank grinned ear to ear. The belting hadn't fazed him. He had just one driving desire in this life, to hit things with that sledgehammer as hard as he could. I love that that's what motivates this guy. Yank wound up and drilled the disc dead center with a tremendous swing. There was a flash of motion. Suddenly, Yank was blasted backward, spinning so fast he was a blur. He whirled across the corridor and crashed into the wall almost 20 meters away, and they all winced. They waited to see if he would get up. A moment later, Yank popped back up and gave them a thumbs up before making his way. Okay, so this is like a point of science that we need to reconcile here. So that guy's holding 100 kilograms, that's 200 pounds of fucking sledgehammer, right? The Space Marine himself, his suit is like another 100 fucking kilos. He probably himself weighs like almost 200 kilos. Super dense and everything like that. So we're talking about let's say like this is like 1,200 pounds of Space Marine sitting right there. Um, so the idea is that the hammer has breached this disc, and that the pressure on the other side of it is so fucking intense that it launches him 20 meters. Is that even possible for I don't know if that's physically possible there. So somebody who is deep into physics or something like that could tell us. Maybe the gravity in that chamber needs to be significantly lower, because that seems more like something that might happen at like a quarter G or something like that. So we could easily make that a quarter G, but we'd have to change up some of the other things in the story. So I don't know if it's reasonable that he's thrown 20 meters by the force of pressure, but pressurized gas can be really fucking hectic. So they're saying that his suit is assisting his strength. And well, we do know, we've specified in the story that this is 2Gs of gravity right there. The suits don't offer any kind of servo assistance or anything. It's literally like just extra weight that they're carrying around. There's no like fucking exoskeleton. There's no like motor assist or anything like that. The suit actually is just like he's wearing a heavy suit of medieval armor. So it's just his own strength that's propelling him. Yeah, they're fucking ripped, dude. Tards, man. You can't fool with them. They're like a fucking chimp that'll rip your dick right off. And clomp back over to the platoon. He'd never lost his grip on his sledge. I like that. You'll often see that we try to show a little bit about how dedicated these guys are by them not losing their grip on certain objects in situations where, yeah, you would probably lose your grip there. Like, because their focus is so singular, it's like they have the superpower of the autism disease. Sticky, rod up, Gunny ordered. Sticky was a pole specialist. Fucking love it. He wore a full quiver of sampling rods, pry bars, and other long-handled tools they needed. He drew one. Sticky drew a sampling rod, stripped off the protective covering, and tried to stick it in front of the hole, but a powerful force ripped it out of his hands and sent it rocketing out of the corridor, bound to fly through deep space for all eternity. They were lucky Yank hadn't shared its fate. Now they understood. So we take out that pronoun there and turn it into the Marines there, so that we can have the pronoun in the next line, and it's understood what we're talking about there. The Marines were lucky Yank hadn't shared its fate. Yeah, the Marines were lucky Yank hadn't shared the sample rod's fate. Now they understood what was happening. The chamber on the other side was heavily pressurized. Okay, cool. Like I think we buy ourselves a little leeway there, talking about the chamber being heavily pressurized, right? And you can like fucking heavy pressurized gas can do some crazy shit. Like I have seen gas canisters just like fucking rocket off and drill people. So like that's why like when you're welding, the tanks are always like chained up. You got to be super careful because they do those the fucking like even like lower pressure like fucking acetylene tanks and so they are still not fucking around. They will still wreck your day. Oxygen is the worst, man, because oxygen is like one of the higher pressure gases that you weld with. I may be getting this totally fucking wrong, by the way. It's been like 2 decades since I welded. But I remember oxygen being like a real motherfucker to deal with. Now, what do we got here? All right, so usage summaries. Just want to make sure that nothing had exploded whilst I'm over here. So Sticky braced with both hands and tried again. This time he managed to hang on long enough to get a read. He held the rod up against the chemiluminescent lamp on his... he held the rods... He held the rod's tip up to the beam of chemiluminescent... Okay. illuminated the rod's tip with the beam from the chemiluminescent lamp on his shoulder, checking the strips affixed to it. Checking the testing strips affixed to it. So yeah, he's like basically has these rods that are like pool testers, but for different chemicals that could be, because I don't know what the fuck is in these whales and so forth. So as we're going through this story, if you're interested in like the editing part of it, where we try to get the tone and everything right, in almost every single scene, it's dark. It's pitch dark in there, and the only things that they can see are things that they're illuminating with these lamps on their shoulders. And also later in the story, we'll talk about they have a guy whose whole job is to hold this big searchlight. So like, yeah, if we ever write into a spot where people are seeing things that they shouldn't, that's a spot where we want to stop and make sure that we like detail things are dark. And a few places we'll see some light within the whale, but mostly it's dark. Silane, Sticky signed. All their eyebrows rose, except for Heath's, who had probably forgotten what Silane was. SIH-4, not alive anymore, went the mnemonic they've all repeated time and time again. SIH-4, not alive anymore, went the mnemonic they'd all been forced to repeat over and over. The gas was tremendously explosive. And instead of the gas... Wait, is silane always a gas? Let's try. Yeah, it's always a gas. So just to tell you a little bit about silane, it's a colorless pyrophoric toxic gas with a sharp, repulsive smell. Hell yeah. Somewhat similar to that of acetic acid or vinegar. Did Yank not see the explosives, or was he too dumb to notice them? He is so single-minded in his desire to hit things with his hammer that even though he can physically see that there's like a ring of explosives on that door, it's probably a real bad idea to hit it with a sledgehammer, he wants to hit that door more than his brain is processing. This is a bad idea. You know what I mean? And throughout the story, many times, we will talk about how tards have difficulty holding two thoughts simultaneously. They're good with like one idea in their heads, right? They're not so good at dealing. He hates this door more than he hates war in this world, according to Jiro. God, I love that. What was the note that I put on here? Oh, so this should be subscript, but yeah, so it should be SIH-4. I bet I'm going to forget that in the actual edit. Silane Gat. Silane was a tremendously explosive gas. The demo charges with a cycle saw would have killed the entire platoon. Lefty tapped on the side of his helmet, beaming at everyone as if he hadn't also nearly killed them a few moments ago. So Lefty tapped on the side of his helmet, beaming at everyone. So I like this a little bit better. So there was silent applause from the platoon. Many of them had already forgotten that Lefty had nearly killed them all a few minutes ago. No, no, no. I like that. I like that. That change there. No sparks. Gunny signed emphatically. Use crows. Make hole bigger. They widened the hole with They widened the hole with crowbars, vented the room, and prepared to enter the alien hulk. They widened the hole with crowbars, vented the silane from the room, and prepared to enter the alien hulk. Okay, cool. So that is chapter 6 right there. What happens in this chapter? Like, is it worth including in the story? I'm going to say like kind of an emphatic yes. So what do we accomplish here? So it's not a long chapter either. So in chapter 6, we start at page 38. So we talk a little bit about them trying to blow up doors, which is good. And then Gunny, this is one where we show the role that superstition plays in the way that they explore these whales, where they're trusting these like weird hunches the whole time. Is it just silane? Can that explode without oxygen? So we get into this a little bit later, but the testing strips that I believe that silane is explosive on its own. Let's take a look at Wikipedia. Complexes with transition metals. Silane is pyrophoric. It undergoes spontaneous combustion in air without the need for external ignition. However, the difficulties in explaining the available, often contradictory combustion data are ascribed to the fact that silane itself is stable, and the natural formation of larger silanes in production, impurities in moisture and catalytic. Above 420 degrees, it decomposes into silicon and hydrogen. Let me see. That's an interesting question. Call it heavy silane. That's a good question to look into right there. So we can change that up like super quick by just saying like a lot of silane. That's an interesting question. If the reader just assumes that it's pure silane. Well, so here's the problem. If there's oxygen there, because it's polyphoric, it might spontaneously combust. So the next room that we're talking about is meant to be some kind of an airlock. Yeah, we'll have to ponder right there, but I think we can get away with it being potentially explosive. I think we'll just stick with silane for right here, and this is one that may come up in sort of the fact checking phase of the edit. But I think we're okay there. Okay. So what else happens here? So both Yank and Lefty nearly killed him by just blowing up the explosives before they ever get there. We talk a little bit about how this bango works neat, and already Gunny is like reminding himself not to get too attached to him because bangos are like a particularly short-lived designation of Space Marine. And then they call him a jupe pigger, which Gunny is not supposed to be saying, which is fantastic. Sticky rod up. There's a lot of homoerotic stuff happening in this story. I'm just putting it out here. Like sticky rod up. Like, it's hot. All right, what do we got here? So we talk a little bit about how the stickman is an important component of their exploration, and how they use things like rods and so forth to try and test things out. And then this is the new edition right here. where we talk a little bit about how there is not a lot of object or constant or concept permanence for the majority of these tards. Like they're even though this guy almost blew them all to fucking smithereens a second before. So, weird whale, Heaths opined. Gunny and Bonzo's eyes met. No words were necessary. Whales were all weird, but this one was undeniably weirder. So this is a sort of like running joke throughout the story, and it's not a great joke, but I think it gets a little bit stronger through repetition. Is the idea of something being bigger than the biggest, or weirder than the weirdest, or something like that. It's just like a tiny little funny thing, but I'm a fan. Okay, there are other jokes in here that are better. Gunny couldn't. So weird whale, Heaths opined. So this should be like a separate paragraph because there's a new speaker there. So we got to go to layout here, and we got to indent this guy. Okay. Weird whale, Heaths opined. So we should have too high voice Heaths if we do like a teleplay for this one. Gunny and Bonzo's eyes met. No words were necessary. Whales were all weird, but this one was undeniably weirder. Gunny couldn't tell which scared him more, the strangeness of the strangeness of Pinchy the whale or Heaths being right about anything. Oh, goddammit. Yeah, Gunny couldn't tell which scared him more, the exceptional strangeness or Heaths being right about anything. The Smarts were going to have a field day with Pinchy the whale. The entry room was a new type... The entry room was a new designation. From the force that had blasted Yank backward, Gunny had assumed it would be a huge chamber, but it was only about 30 meters in diameter, heavily pressurized with silane. Gunny frowned, wondering just how high that pressure could go before the whole thing would blow spontaneously. Gunny frowned, wondering just how high that pressure could go before the whole thing would spontaneously explode, but he dismissed it. That was for the Smarts to figure out. The chamber was teardrop... did we say teardrop sheet? Okay, yeah, we don't say... The chamber was teardrop-shaped. The platoon stood in a rounded depression that sank down to about tard height at the center of the room. There was no interior lighting so far on this whale. They relied on their chem lamps to see. So at this point, they are in atmosphere and can talk. We'll get to it in a second. Everything else is signing, but yeah. So at this point, they have sealed off the thing, and the room is flooded again with silane because there's a continual flow there. So let's take a look back. The chamber was teardrop-shaped. The platoons stood in a rounded depression that sank down to about tard height in the center of the room. There was no interior lighting so far on this whale. The Marines relied on their chem lamps to see. A ring of 9 triangular ports was at the center of the room. They were 28 centimeters to a side, covered with a cap of thick glass-like material. There were thick, sausage-like protrusions on the wall at even intervals, running all the way to the top of the chamber. Were they reinforcing ribs? Gunny wondered if this was some kind of an airlock. Airlocks were a top priority on his search list. The Smarts desperately wanted to find out if the whalers breathed and what they did if so. Whalers would be capitalized here. So whalers, yeah, I wonder if there's like a Latin name for whale maker. Hold on. Yeah, that's not great. So sete is whale, I guess. Uh, pater sete. Huh. All right. Well, that doesn't make a cool word, so no dice there. The smarts desperately wanted to figure out if the whale makers breathed and what they did if so. Everything inside the teardrop was crusted over with a thin layer of what at first seemed like ice. Oh yeah, this. Everything inside the teardrop was crusted over with a thin layer of what seemed like ice, but it didn't melt when exposed to the heat from their suits. They could feel it crunching underfoot with every step. Above them, at the top of the teardrop, there was a triangular apparatus that looked a little like a bird's talon. Poke it, Gunny signed, and Sticky was already snapping together a bunch of meter rods. He needed 7 of them to poke the bottom of the talon thing, and it swung a little back and forth but didn't ignite the silane or rain down acid on them. That was a plus. Lock up. Oh. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're right here. Absolutely. That edit where... And so here... so here... When we use sign language, we're doing it all in caps. I don't want to use quotes for sign language. I want it to be clear. Uh, I love using sign opined here. An editor will be like, no, you can't do that because it's a little bit fucking janky. But I love the sign opine. Weird will. I fucking love it. I'm keeping it. People don't like it, they can suck my dick. Poke it, Gunny signed. Okay. Lock up, Gunny signed. Yeah, you give your opinion in sign language. You sign a pine. Oh. Oh. I don't. I'm not getting enough sleep because that's funny as fuck to me. Lock up, Gunny ordered, and Yank, Lefty, and Heaths quickly sealed the breach they'd entered through with an airlock kit. The clear myelite walls were slack at first, but they began to balloon out. Gas was still pouring into the room. Gunny listened as the pressure in the room climbed. He began to faintly hear things from outside of his suit. Soon the Marines were all chattering with each other. There was a thrumming noise overhead from whatever was pumping gas into the room. You want the ladder, Gunny? Yakov offered. All right, so this is another like tiny little joke. This Marine is called Yakov, and Yakov is just a variant of Jacob, so it's Jacob's ladder. You want the ladder, Gunny? Yakov offered, looking up at the talon thing, which was swaying slightly from Sticky's pokes. No, we don't need slightly there. Fuck adverbs. Which was still swaying from Sticky's pokes. Yakov was the strongest of them. He carried the 70-rung extendable folding ladder that could bear the weight of a suited Marine. Oh shit, fucking Meep Sheep out here. Cam the Cam Man Cam. Meep, we're editing a new story about SPACETARDS. I'm sorry to... I'm just going to say that LT Genie is a Mexican cat girl, so I can get your interest in here. So there's only one Mexican cat girl in here, but she's a cutie, and she's all tattooed up. And the grog that the Space Marines drink is Coors Banquet. So this is highly relevant to your interests. Gunny considered the idea. If they could get it down and bring it back, maybe it would tell them what the whale makers breathed. I don't like whale makers. I want a better word for that. I'd like to just call them whalers, but I think the guys that look for the ships are the whalers. Well, what can we call these aliens that make whales? Whale builders, whale forgers. Who makes a whale? Whale maker. Whales love. Blue Whale Suicide game creator is being held on charges of inciting 16 cool girls. School that Blue Whale shit is crazy. Hell yeah. Whale fathers. Would they be? I mean, it's weird to like have them be gender renoed. All right. So what is Sirius saying right here? No. So Sirius gave us like definitely only give feedback in the YouTube chat because I'm not going to look at it afterward. Like if you want something to be changed in the story, you have to say it in like the YouTube or the Twitch chat or something like that. So he's saying that we don't use an Oxford comma here when we're giving the Space Marine names. We should have the Oxford comma in every. I do use the Oxford comma in my list. So if you give me the page that it's on, then I can go back and change it, or give me the line of text that I can do a find and replace. I'll change it. If not, it'll have to wait for the proofreading edit that I'll do there. So, oh, I like whale lords. Oh yeah, I do like whale lords. No, it's too fucking, it's too science fictiony to call them whale lords because they know nothing. They have no idea what these guys are. Whalemaker. I like Whalemaker. Yeah, we're gonna stick for fucking. If we come up with a better idea, we'll do it for right now. But Whalemaker is what we're gonna stick with. But yeah, we do want to have the Oxford comma in all cases there. Okay, so Gunny considered the idea. If they could get the Talon down and bring it back, maybe it would tell them what the Whalemakers breathed. That might. Whalemaster. Ooh, I do like Whalemaster. Getting some like. Well, that's definitely one of the first massive hard-ons that I ever had in my life. Was that fucking Beastmaster movie, like back in the day, where there's like a pregnant woman and they're like magically taking her pregnancy and like teleporting it into a fucking cow or a bear or a horse or whatever the fuck they did there. Yeah, that was an awakening in my young life. Good God. Yeah, shout outs if you know the scene that I'm talking about. It was a terrible movie. But but nonetheless, mm. Whale Master. I do like Whale Master a little bit. Masters of Whales. Wait, what? Lords of Wales. I like that. That has like a fucking maybe some kind of like Welsh royalty. So hold on. Baleen effects. Oh, that's kind of interesting. I like Carnifexes from fucking 40K. I used to have a Tyranid army. So Diana, Princess of Wales. Princess of Wales. All right, we're not going to fuck around with that. We're just going to stick with Whalemakers for right now. So we don't want to have too many gimmicks in the story. But that's definitely something that I might change up later if I get a good idea. Gunny considered the idea. If they could get the Talon down and bring it back, maybe it would tell them what the Whalemakers breathed. That information might save a bunch of tarred light. It was information that might save countless tards. But Gunny didn't like the look of the talon. It reminded him of something. A claw that dropped down on a chain and scooped things up. He pictured it wrenching one of his Marines into the ceiling, their arms flailing uselessly as they were scooped up. Gunny shut his eyes and tried to remember where he'd seen it. One of the thousands of safety briefings? Mission logs from another platoon? A dream? He felt the start of an idea beginning to form and tried to let it, but he gave it too much slack and it slipped away. And tried to let it bloom, but he gave it too much slap and it slipped away. Lobster harmonica, Gunny muttered. It was all he could dredge up. He had no idea what it meant. What's that, Gunny? Yakov asked. Nothing, Yak. No, we can't cut her down. Room's filling with silane. Might spark and blow the whole chuckin' thing. Gunny looked around the room. There were 2 discs besides the one... Gunny looked around the room for a way out. It reminded him of something runs on, should break it. He pictures it. Yeah, like, all right, let's go back to this right here. So what Gunny is visualizing here is an episode of The Simpsons that he has seen. It's actually the bowling league episode, and he's picturing a claw machine. I still have movies in the grim darkness of the future. It reminded him of something, a claw that would drop down on a chain and scoop things up. He pictured it wrenching one of his Marines into the ceiling, their arms flailing uselessly as they were scooped up. Let's see. Moving pictures for tards to watch. Yeah, it's Kino. Oh, God. Everybody involved in this is going right to fucking hell. I mean, I think everybody goes to hell, honestly. I don't think you can get to heaven unless you're willing to go to hell first. But that's, just my Rastafarianism shining through. What do we got here? So the problem that we have here is like we're visualizing, and I run into this a few places in the narrative, right? We're what I want to talk about here is this is just he's visualizing like the claw game, right? But Gunny has never seen the claw game, right? He has never been off of a spaceship in his entire life. He was hatched in a spaceship. He's always lived in a spaceship. He will die in a spaceship. So he has no idea that the claw game ever existed and so forth. It would appear to him as like something like, what the fuck is this thing, right? He wouldn't have a frame of reference for it. Now later in the story, it's like established that the TARS just watch fucking television all the time. Like all kinds of, they like old war movies and stuff like that. And they're just in their hive. There's nothing else to do. And they're just fucking constantly watching Teletubbies and other shit like that, or whatever the futuristic equivalent is. It, and if you've ever worked at a center for special needs chatters, you will know that they watch a lot of television. But there's no spaceships with like restaurants or anything in this universe. No, not there's not like a fucking claw game anywhere. Gunny shut his eyes and tried to remember where he'd seen the claw. A safety briefing? A dream? Something he'd seen in a movie? Yeah, we don't need. So we need to trim this a little bit because it's like a lot of work that we're doing for this little joke. I wanna have lobster harmonica in here, real bad. But for anybody who hasn't seen that Simpsons episode, this shit just does not track. It's just like, why does it fucking say lobster harmonica? This is very much just a joke for what percentage of readers are gonna like this reference. Like maybe like one in like 8 is gonna be like, oh, like I see what you did there. So yeah, this is something a real editor would cut. But fuck it, I like lobster harmonica. Okay, so with the talk of tools that many are carrying, wrench is a word that I don't like. So I see what you're saying there. The thing is that, okay, so 2 words do the work of wrenched, right? So wrenching, when I hear the word wrenching, I'm thinking about somebody's arm getting yanked so hard that it like dislocates their shoulder or something like that. Or something like a force that has a strong effect on the person. And wrenching is like more so than the word yanking. And yank is like also, yank is like going a little into slang right there. So let's take a look at what our options are for wrenching. Dislocating, ripping, spraining, tweaking, wresting, coercing, dragging. I don't see a good alternative in there. So like ripping him to the ceiling isn't quite right. So yeah, I see what you're saying, where I think their wrenching is the only thing. In fact, what are the odds that this will make it into the final cut? Before we're spending like a bunch of time on this. I wonder if this is going to get cut by an editor. So here we had a mixed metaphor for his thinking. So where he felt the idea, the start of an idea. He felt okay, so we want to just turn this into a fishing metaphor if we can. He felt the answer bobbing in the distance. He tried to reel it in, but he gave it too much slack and it slipped away. Okay, so that's like a more complete, this is a fishing metaphor now. And we're talking about a lobster harmonica and the claw game. Yeah, like I love that lobster harmonica. And then we got dredging up. Nothing, yak. All right, so this is like a total. This, well, how many words do we have here? This is fucking. Okay, this is 150 words that you just have to put up with because I like it. Walrye and carpenters. What the fuck does that mean? Walruses and carpenters. All right. Let me see. What's that, Gunny? Yakov. Oh, so Gunny should be capitalized. Nothing, Yak. No, we can't cut her down. Room's filling with silane. Might spark and blow the whole chuckin' thing. Yeah, I love that fucking episode. Gunny looked around the room for a way out. The only ship worth having is the friendship. Oop, lost a nail. Ah, fucking love it there. That was really, really good. Yeah, that was back when it was like one of the best shows on television. Back when there was television. Shout out to Dark Mage with the lobster references. Yeah, this is all for him right here. Gunny looked around the room for a way out. There were 2 discs besides. There were 2 discs opposite the one the way. Okay, Gunny looked around the room for a way out. Well, he's not looking for a way out. Gunny looked around the room for the next door. There were 2 discs opposite the one they'd breached to enter. For the 1,000th time, he wished he could figure out how to open them without beating their way through. The one to his right had 9 triangular ports surrounding it. They mirrored the 9 set in the floor. In an arc over the disc was what looked like a plaque. Its surface was knurled with knobs and bumps, irregular enough that maybe they were some kind of language. Probably some kind of a sign. Yak, ladder up, get Member up there. Member, get a rubbing first, then chuck around with it. See if mashing it does anything. Aye, aye, Gunny, the Marines agreed. Member was scratching measurements down into the mission rudder that was clipped to his suit. With a heavy chain. Okay, so this is like some straight Warhammer shit right here, where he's got like the book clipped to his suit right there, like he's a fucking mission chaplain or whatever, but we'll get into what that's all about right there. Gunny, okay, so seeing it would be a while, Gunny decided it was time for a lesson. Boys, what's that? Gunny pointed at the heavy tome in Member's hands. Oh. Member was writing in it with his scribe, a little diamond point Marines could extend from the index finger of either gauntlet. Uh-oh. Oh, somebody just subscribed to me on YouTube. Why is that fucking making a sound at this point when it never had before? Well, thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel there. I'm surprised that Streamlabs didn't pop up like a whole fucking thing there. But, you know, it's just one thing I've noticed. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Faster than the speeding bullet. I've got to make my own like custom animated subscriber shit at some point there. Maybe I'll do that today. I'm trying a new thing where I won't let myself play video games until I have worked out for an hour each day and done an hour of audiobook recording each day. Let's see if we can stick with that. Oh God, I gotta shave. This is fucking driving me crazy. It's gonna hurt so much too, because like I don't have a fucking trimmer, so I'm just gonna have to straight razor it. But yeah, I'm sick of being fucking shaggy. This is not a good experiment for the kid. Sorry, boys. I tried. For all you guys out there who like bears, I can't make it happen for you. Maybe I'll feel better after I shave too. I feel like such a degenerate piece of shit. That's how society has conditioned me. Like this perfectly natural. Like this is the way that I should be. You know. Like, but out here chopping off my hair and my dick and fucking feminizing myself for culture. Neckbeard throws in the towel. I give up. It is a terrible neckbeard, right? Like, why do I have like so much fucking more hair here? Why does my neck need to be warm? Because if it's there to like disguise my Adam's apple, so I can be a trap, I got to tell you, it's going about it the wrong way. It's so stupid. Anyhow, yeah, I think today's the day. I'm done with this whole fucking growing a scraggly beard. I'll keep the sideburns for now. I'll just let them fucking grow in. Give you all something to work with there. Boys, what's that? Gunny pointed at the heavy tome. Gunny pointed at the heavy tome in Member's hands. Member was writing in it with his scribe, the little diamond point. A diamond point Marines could extend from the index finger of either gauntlet. Every Marine was trained to be the new member if they were called to, though probably only Gunny and Bonzo could do anything close to a halfway decent job of it. Funny seeing as I've been planning on playing City Skylines all day. That's kind of fun. I thought I might like try getting into Factorio or something like that. I got the new Mountain Blade, but I died in the tutorial mission like 3 fucking times. They just give you shitty weapons, man. Lol, Heaps is a tard. Oh, did you not suspect that Heaps would be a tard? There's lots of in-jokes in this one. That's the rudder, Gunny, Heaps said. Nah, Gunny said. Glad he could always count on Heaps to step into his setup. That right there, that's everything. That rudder is our whole mission, boys. We make it back with the rudder? Doesn't matter what else you chuck up or who buys it, the mission is a success. And what happens when a mission is a success? All right, so the success does not have 3 C's. I did not succeed at writing success. The good book, Heaps said, shaking out of his confusion and clapping his gauntlets together in glee. We get in a good book. Righto, Heaps. And what else? A week of double rations and double grog, Lefty said, licking his chops. All right, that's too much. Like, what would he do? Good night. Cool story, Zach. My first stream for this book will be around for the next few days if you're doing them. Yeah, we're only going to finish this chapter today. But yeah, we should be done with this within like a week or so. And then we're doing an exciting new book. So I like that Lefty is rubbing his gauntlets together. So said is the wrong word. We want blurted, but we don't want ejaculated. Exclaimed is good. I love it, exclaim. Batter up, Cal exclaimed. Shoutouts if you recognize that reference. So rudder is a horny deer buck. This is true, but there are other uses of the word rudder. And we're specifically talking about one that I learned from the book Shogun, which I hadn't known before. But rudder is like a very apropos term for this book. A week of double rations and double grog, Lefty exclaimed, rubbing his gauntlets together. And what do we get if we bring back a whopper? Something big for the smarts? We get to nod, Bonzo concluded, naked want in his eyes. He didn't often participate in these little gimmicks, but nod always caught his attention. Cod clam right. Oh. You're cod clam right, Bonzo. 7 days a nod, boys. Is it true the nodding isn't as good after the first time? Lefty asked. He'd gotten his first taste of nod when they managed to haul the floater back. The smarts had been overjoyed when the tards presented them with the horseshoe-shaped machine that could apparently defy gravity. The smarts had been overjoyed when the 37th presented them with a horseshoe-shaped machine that could apparently defy gravity. Nope. It's better every time. Ain't that right, member? Uh, nope. It's better every time. Ain't that right, member? I'm getting tired of this ejaculated censorship. It's always appropriate. What was good in the 1920s is still good in the 2020s. If you say so. Um, mission recorder should be capitalized here because it's a specific role. I think. I don't. Oh, I know that. I know that we don't do that elsewhere. So we're gonna decapitalize it there because I know that I'm wrong elsewhere. We could do a find and replace for all the mission recorders and make them capital. I don't know. I don't know if that role should be capitalized. Okay. So hold on. I got another message from Sirius here. Sirius, who is obviously somebody that we banned before. Fun edit stream. Adjective. Me. Okay. So there's old Sirius there. But what do we got here? Am I missing any chats that are important? Shoutouts to Puffmain, cries like a bitch in the journalist Discord. Let me get back to this chat. Wait, is he serious? Like somebody that got... Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All the signs are there. But, if somebody like reforms and comes back and isn't an asshole, we just treat it like there's somebody new. That's the way to go. You just don't insult our intelligence. Nope, it's better every time. Ain't that right? So I thought you might be into this whole idea of nodding there, Meepsheep. Like, I love that they're paid in drugs. Better every time, Gunny, member called back from the top of the ladder. He was busy with a scroll of contact paper, carefully making a rubbing. That was one more thing that was special about Member. He could do two things at once without chucking one up better than anyone else in the platoon. Better every time, Bonzo agreed. So quietly that Gunny had to read his lips. Oh, I missed the first part about nodding. Yeah, so basically, the idea is if they bring back like a piece of whalemaker technology that is crazy, like an anti-gravity machine or a cola that turns white people black and black people white, that they get rewarded by like 7 days of a heroin binge. So shout outs to fucking paying people in heroin. Or, it might be some other drug. It doesn't have to be heroin. But Bonzo agreed. So quietly, Gunny had to read his lips. Bonzo got all quiet and big-eyed when they were talking about Nod. It reminded Gunny of the way Chappie got when he was blogging about that featured carpenter that all his Italian songs were about. And what happens if we don't bring back that old rudder? Gunny continued. Missions hissed, Heath said, and there were boos from many of the less luminous Marines. No good book? Gunny asked. Nah, we go on the JIT list. And what happens when you're on the JIT list? No grog, JIT rations, no nod. It was easy to see Heath had never nodded. The word had no weight when he said it. A tard who had tasted nod couldn't say it without reverence. At this point, I hope these guys get to chuck some wrenches. What, like they're fucking turtles in Super Mario? Oh, I guess those are hammers that they're flinging. All right, reference lost. What else? Gunny pressed. Heath trailed. Gunny didn't let up. He knew Heath knew this one. We go and Gunny didn't let up. He knew Heaps knew this one. We go, and the Gunny prompted. Can't remember. Saws, Gunny. Okay, so how would you say soz? So, because like SOZ, is that only something that people type? Like, because I've seen SOZ to mean sorry a bunch of different places, right? I think it's like teenager, like it's like some kind of weird NADSAT or something like that. Let's do Urban Dictionary. Has it made it into? No, it's not a word. Internet term that is like sorry, but is a little less meaningful. Saws, dude. Illiterate morons who for some reason substitute a Z for RRY, the latter of which would take an entire quarter of a second to type out. OMG, saws about that. Shut the fuck. All right. Slang for sorry. Saws, dude. I fucked up. All right, I'm keeping it. I like saws. Saws, Gunny. If you can't remember, you go, and the Gunny prodded. And when he saw Heaps light up with understanding, saws was always. How do you say it, Spathiwa? Like saw? Like is it SAWS? Saws or sows? SOS. So Spathiwa says it was always British for sorry. Yeah, it does feel British. I believe that. If you can't remember, you go, and the Gunny prodded. Heaves' eyes lit with understanding. Then they darted left with apprehension. He didn't like to think about this. You go in the reminder room, Heath said unhappily, and a chorus of boos met the mention. Nobody liked to think about the reminder room. Saws makes sense a little bit more immediately. I guess so. We're going to keep it as SOZ. Like, I think the primary audience for this book, internet fucking nerds watching this right now, will get it. But yeah, there really is like a lot of net shit crammed into this one. The transcendence of the nod was counterbalanced by the endless suffering of the reminder room. Chappie kept trying to convince Gunny you couldn't have one without the other, but Gunny knew better. The smarts were just sadists. They liked to watch tards suffer, liked to use a bunch of big words to hurt their heads and memory machines to hurt their bodies. It made them feel big. Sorry. Sorry. Is that how it is? Soy. It's not saws. Soy. Is that how you do it? Soy. Soy, mate. Soy, mate. Because that works even better, because remember, these are Australian Space Marines. I need to get fucking Alyosha or Jewbird to be our correspondent on the Australian shit in this. Because we need to Aussie these guys up a little bit there. Because they're definitely meant to be Australian ship posters in outer space. Soy, mate. Oh, yeah, it does. Is that how you fucking say it? Why wouldn't it be SOI? Soy, mate. I really need to go back to London and just pick up like a fucking Brixton accent and just keep it for the rest of my life. It would take me so far. I like this paragraph, by the way, right here. The transcendence of Nod was counterbalanced by the endless suffering of the reminder room. Chappie kept trying to convince Gunny that you couldn't have one without the other, but Gunny knew better. The smarts were just sadists. They liked to watch tards suffer, like they use a bunch of big words to hurt their heads and memory machines to hurt their bodies. It made them feel big. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Love what's happening there. I love one, I love that Gunny can understand the concept of sadism. Two, I like the discord between the people putting them on these missions. That's a very military thing. Just thinking that the people in command fucking hate you. Sores. But also how they say it. Soys. I can't do it. I can't do it. All right, yeah. And so here we capitalize reminded, which I don't know that we can get it. Gunny was reminded the longest. That's why he knows so much, Lefty said. Lefty ventured. Nah, that ain't how it works. The more you get reminded, the more scrambled your brains get. That's why we work so hard to save the rudder. How's it going up there, Member? Konami halfway done, Gunny. Member was poking each of the little nubs on the plaque. Up twice, down twice, left, right, press, release, twist, pinch. There were several approaches they would use to try and get a piece of a whale to do something. Alphabet, which was starting at the top and trying every element from left to right. Tabafla, which was the same thing reversed. Ouija, where you got a bunch of Marines involved and they all hit things randomly. And Navajo, where a member would hover his hand over the surface they were trying to interact with and poke it wherever his hand shook. So this should be, I think, a semicolon separated list. Let's try it out. Semicolon separated list. Yeah, these should be semicolon separated. Okay. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Sores, Captain. I poured what's left of the hardtack down me. Sores, Captain. I poured what's left of the hardtack down me breeches. Don't know what possessed me. Shout outs to the dinner. Hell yeah. Big meat. All right. There were several approaches where they would. There were several approaches the platoon would use to try and get a piece of a whale to do something. Alphabet. I don't like that comma after alphabet. Alphabet, starting at the top and trying every element from left to right. Tabafla, which was the same thing in reverse. Ouija, where a bunch of Marines got involved and they all hit things randomly. And Navajo, where a member would hover his hand over the surface they were trying to interact with and poke it wherever his hand shook. Yeah. Oh, that's so much punctuation in this fucking sentence right there. I'm going to leave it in because we are going to pay a professional editor to edit this story. Hopefully not a lot of money because this story is not going to make any money. But I just want the editor to come back to me and be like, what the fuck are you doing when they read this paragraph? It's so wrong. Oh, I love this shit. The interaction gimmicks weren't part of training. Every platoon seemed to come up with their own convention. I don't see why every American wouldn't want to purchase a copy of this story, to tell you the truth. God, I can't wait for the first person to try and like, I think this is ableist. I'm gonna look this guy up, and then they figure out what the fuck is going on, and they're like, oh my god, they just burst into fucking flames. Uh, I this reminds Embrace Freedom of the Spelljammer novels. I used to play the gold box games back in the day. I fucking loved them. And I played the Spelljammer one too. I always thought Spelljammer was fucking retarded, though. I don't like anything. So there's one thing about me as like a novelist or a GM or whatever. I don't like thematic mashups. Like I don't like fucking fantasy that has guns in it, right? I don't like steampunk shit, right? I don't like Spelljammer where it's like fucking Philostajon and fucking ships in outer space and so forth. It's just it loses me when there's not when you try to like mash up two different themes almost always. And I know that like this is just like a very personal taste thing. I'm not saying that people who like those things are wrong. It just doesn't do it for me. And I have other shit where I'm just like very particular. Like I don't like the undead in it always seems kind of stupid to me in fucking stories like skeletons or whatever. I just have a hard time reconciling myself to the fact that like skeletons are supposed to be some kind of a threat. I don't like it. But I should mangle Konami into Corn Army. Corn Army. Oh, Cornami is so good. Oh, I'm so tempted to use it. I think Buck Rogers is kind of like classic there. It doesn't fall into like the same. I mean, that's tough, because it does like transgress over some of those. Like this is so wacky, it's stupid, right? And that's one of the things about like playing in Dungeons and Dragons and shit, where I always struggle. Is like I'm more interested in like a serious narrative, like because Dungeons and Dragons is always going to be funny. Like people are going to come up with stupid shit. Like this story that we're writing right now is like it's funny. There's stupid shit happening in it, but the tone of it is serious, right? And like if we were just like wacky for its own sake, and it wouldn't have the same resonance for me. Corn Army is stupendous. I'm so tempted to change that. I don't think a lot of people will get it. I love that they've done Ouija and Navajo and because they misspell Ouija right here. Okay, so I think Corn Army is us like getting too deep into the gimmick meta of this right here. I think it's not going to track for regular readers, but it is with great regret that I decline to put in Corn Army because I think Corn Army is fucking hilarious. Yeah, if I have any regrets about the story, it's not putting that in there. So these aren't gimmick. The interaction routines weren't part of training. Every platoon seemed to come up with their own gimmicks. What got you reminded for so long, Gunny? Heaths asked. Heaths knew this story. Heaths already knew this one. He was just playing dumb to hear a story. Gunny almost called him out on it, but he shrugged. But they had more time to burn. He was just a little whale, about 10 rats from tip to tail. But once we got her inside, everything was jumping. There was these flying grapes that would come at you if you moved too fast. Boom! Just like a frag grenade. Our member got blown to bits. Our member got blown to bits early. Tards were running around in confusion, and all of them was just getting popped left and right. All right, we need to work. It was just a little whale, about 10 rats from tip to tail. But once we got her inside, it should be. But once we got inside her, everything was jumping. There were these. Okay. So we're gonna tone down like a little bit of the like there was the like Bronx and Gunny's speech because it's more important. Like Gunny is supposed to be one of like the least featured of the Marines right here. I think it's more important to have his speech be less colored and more clear for the reader, especially as he's giving like this story. And do I use Spellbound earlier? How'd you get out of it, Gunny? Heath asked. You had to be perfectly still, then throw something. The grapes would fly into it and blow themselves up. Lost half the platoon on entry, and every centimeter of that whale was murder. 5 rooms in, this thing floats into the room like a ghost made of blue light, and it starts screaming at us. It starts screaming at us. Sounded like a bunch of cycle saws going at once. Once we got inside her, everything was jumping. Okay, so this is past tense, and then we jump to present tense here, and we need to fix that. You had to be perfectly still and then throw something. The grapes would fly into it and blow themselves up. Lost half the platoon on entry, and every centimeter of that whale was murder. Five rooms in, this thing floated into the room. Five rooms in, this thing floated towards us, a ghost made of blue light. It started screaming at us. Sounded like a bunch of cycle saws going at once. We tried to talk to it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you had to be perfectly still, then throw something. The grapes would fly into it and blow themselves up. The grapes would fly at it and blow themselves up. Lost half the platoon on entry, and every centimeter of that whale was murder. 5 rooms in, this thing floated towards us, a ghost made of blue light. It started screaming at us. Sounded like a bunch of cycle saws going at once. We tried to talk to it, but it just reached out and started grabbing Marines. Zap! It cut right through everything it touched. Snick snack. No blood. Everything cauterized. Everything was cauterized. What's cauterized, Gunny? Like when you cut something with a torch, the veins melt over so they can't bleed. I opened up on that blue ghost thing with my pistol and the bullet shot right through. Hit something behind it and there's all this electric... Okay. Oh, look at that. I already made that edit there. Way ahead of you. Or actually, you probably made it before I did, and there's 30 seconds of lag on the YouTube comments. Let me see here. Why does nobody love me? Oh, wait. Somebody loves me. Hold on. Yeah, I'm so fucking lonely, boys. You have no idea how this isolation is. Oh. Huh. Let me see. Destroy everything you touch. Blue ghost cauterizing all the space marines. Fucking. It's like when you cut something with a torch. The veins melt over so they can't bleed. Anyhow, I pulled my pistol on the ghost, but the slugs went right through it. I don't think I can use blinking lights here. Isolation is crazy for you, Thursday for me. Yeah, man, I'm like I need people in my life. I need women and fucking nerds to play board games with me. I need like people at work to, like need me to do shit so that I feel like a useful member of fucking society. I don't like this. I don't like this shit one bit, man. I like one of my greatest fears is being in prison, and I don't feel imprisoned, right? I'm still like sneaking out and shit, and going rooftop to rooftop like Batman. But my torture. We had a weekly dev meeting yesterday, and everyone was forced to answer if you could be an animal, what animal would you be? And I said puppy. Ooh. What did I use the last time? I think somebody asked me what fantasy creature I would be, and I said I would be a doppelganger. And she was like, oh, you'd always have to be somebody else. And I said, no. And I posited that their default form was they would just become like a featureless orb, and like their sofas would just be like an avocado that they would sit in the pit of, which was kind of cool to me. I like that idea. But yeah, like fucking that kind of faggy shit at stand up has no place on this earth. And whoever your team lead is should be horsewhipped. And you can tell him I fucking said that too. I'll say it right to his goddamn face. Fucking DevOps. All right, anyhow. Yeah, it actually does sound awful. I pulled my pistol on the ghost. So what can we have here? Does he have opinions about what it means to be a disruptor? God. The only disruptors I want to see are like EMP weapons that short out people's nerves and make them follow around your syndicate guys, and you collect money. Oh, I'm going to play Syndicate Wars after I get off of this fucking stream. God, I love Syndicate Wars. What a... I'm going to have to DOS box that motherfucker. Syndicate Wars is so good. Love that game. I played like tons and tons of it, and I would just cheat and like get all the fucking fancy plasma lances and shit like that. Still fun. Ugh, the graviton gun. An amazing game. And I remember the interface was just awful for it there. Oh no, now I'm not gonna install it because I remember the interface being terrible. But I would love it if somebody remade that game with like a real UI. Suffering from his own isolation because he tested positive for the COVID. Well, maybe he'll be gone soon. And you'll get somebody who isn't quite so fucking god-awful. All right, what do we got here? Yeah, thoughts and prayers are with you for his unrecovery. Wow. Then all the discs started going haywire, opening and closing, lights flashing, everything chucked up. The way we came was sealed off. We couldn't get back to the rats. How come you're still here if you died, Gunny? Eve said, brow furrowed. Let me finish the story, you double feature. I love that he's calling him like a science fiction double feature right there. Shouts to Rocky Harbor. Let me finish the story, you double feature. All kinds of jit was going wrong. Flash fires, gravity flickering. We see more of the blue... We found more of the blue ghosts, but they were all flying around like mad. This is like Ender's Game, but if we sent normal kids plucked out of kindergarten sent straight into a space mission. Oh, I love that concept. So I do worry that we have not made the Space Marines dumb enough, right? So that's one thing I'm definitely looking to my readers for here. Whether we maintain like a consistent level of intelligence for these guys, if we're hitting like the right tone of between smart and dumb for these guys. It was just very, very difficult. Like for me to write somebody who's so much smarter than myself. No, I'm not gonna fish around like that. But like I'm trying to write for, I don't know, maybe I should just get drunk as shit and try to write these guys and see if it tracks. But yeah, we're trying to write at a consistent like level of intelligence for these guys, um, and I want it to like feel good for the reader. Like I don't want them to be too dumb, whereas it's like I don't care about these idiots, but I don't want them to be too smart either, where we're not going along with our premise that they're developmentally disabled as a result of this. So we're trying to hit like the Charlie level. How often do they punch themselves when frustrated? Oh, I don't think that happens anywhere in the story, but I've definitely seen. I've definitely seen that with kids that I've worked with. Um, I should have added that somewhere. We found more of the blue ghosts, but they were flying around like mad, not paying us any mind. Okay. We sneaked around trying to. But one of our. Uh, but some Jupe pigger tripped into one of the ghosts and it flipped on us. What'd you do? His mouth open with awe. Let me see. So far it tracks with a space marine who has the strength of 3 men, lots of training and drills, lots of practice, but very limited intelligence. So not too much problem-solving ability in most of them. Okay, because later on in this, they do have to like solve problems. You can't have like a fucking space exploration story where people aren't figuring stuff out and solving problems, but their solutions need to be stupid solutions, right? You know what I mean? They need to track. So as we're reading through this, we want to make sure that we stay true to this premise and this reality that we've set out for ourselves. So anyhow, what'd you do? He asked, his mouth open with awe. I didn't do anything but pucker and pray. I was 100% about to cash in, but my stickman Fico saved me. PP Pharrell. He grabbed hold of this loose electric wire that's sparking and jumping. Louse wire. Fico whipped the ghost with that chucker. But that. It turned from blue to red, and it made this screaming noise. I never heard anything like it. It sounded madder than LT Genie if you ain't clipped in right. The platoon laughed. Lieutenant Genie was so nice if you were squared away, but if you chucked up during load-in, she was a real banshee. Loved that. So that red ghost, it forgot all about me and set off tearing. Yeah. It forgot all about me and set off tearing down the corridor. We followed it and it starts ripping. We followed it. It started flying at the other ghost. When it touched them, they turned red too. There was a battle between red and blue. The sound of it, boys. You wouldn't believe the sound of it, boy. Okay, let's go back. So that red ghost, it forgot all about me. It forgot all about me and set off tearing down the corridor. We followed it. It started flying at the other ghosts, and when it touched them, they turned red too. There was a battle between red and blue. You wouldn't believe the sound of it, boys. I could hear them screaming every time I closed my eyes for months. Fire didn't hurt them. I gave them both barrels from Benny, and they didn't even notice it. I gave them both barrels from Benny, but they didn't even notice. They were fighting around this big purple orb, maybe 3 meters in diameter. Mm-hmm. Then a new blue would pop out whole. The Reds were losing the fight, and that's bad news for me and Fico. I clipped it with 5 rounds, but they were bouncing off of it. One last... Gunny looked around his platoon. Every set of eyes was locked on him. Wham! Dead center. My shot punched right through that otter chucker. And that old orb started spinning like crazy. A bright purple beam started blasting out of the bullet hole, and it was cutting everything it touched apart. Whoa, he breathed. Then what? Boom, depressurization. boom, depressurization. Fico and I could barely hold on. It was a cod clam miracle we didn't get carved up. All the ghosts turned gray and started orbiting the busted orb, fading away, glaring at us like we'd done them dirty. The whale lost power, and we were in 0G. It turned out the beam cut all the way through the ship, through the hull and everything. The whale was in 4 or 5 pieces, drifting apart from each other. We had to scramble out of the hull and jump from piece to piece. The two of us spent so long baking on the ghost skin that Fico bought it, just cooked to death. He was a good Marine, boys. I wrote his name in the good book myself. I had to fly the rats back solo, and I was so rad sick I wound up crashing it into the ship bay. Nearly took out the whole... And I wound up crashing it into the ship bay. Nearly took out the whole works. Was LT Jeannie okay? Lefty asked, suddenly concerned. Of course she was. Didn't she strap you in on the way over, Flipjit? That was a different ship, the Moravini. A whole bunch of Humies bought it. Whole sector of the ship was contaminated. I had to spend 2 days in decon. Okay. Oh, so there we had him saying decon, deacon for decontamination, but I think that's too much of a stretch. Had to spend 2 days in decon. The second I wasn't glowing, they stuck me right in the reminder room. I was there for 95 days. 95, Yank exclaimed. That was the thing about telling a story to Tards. They forgot so much that every time there was something new for them. Gunny had told this one. Gunny had told the platoon this one at least a dozen times. Why didn't you wait for the tug, Gunny? I was seeing things. Thought them ghosts was chasing me. I seen some shit I can't explain when that orb busted wide open. The smarts were hissed we didn't have the rudder for them. So is that it? That's what the whalers are? So is that it? That's what the whale makers are? Ghosts? Yank asked. No, I think these are like a one-off. That whale wasn't like this one at all. He was all... No, I think these were like a... No, I think that whale was a one-off. It was all lit up inside. Scales were 5-pointed stars inside rings, like pentagrams or whatever. I like that he can't say pentagram. Never seen scales like that since. There ain't no others in the records. I don't think the smarts believed much of what I told them on account of how rad sick I was. I bet they was mad you believe... They must have been hissed who wrecked the rats. Whaler makers? No. No, it's whale makers. They must have been hissed you wrecked the rats. You better believe it. The Moravini was too busted up to continue. They had to tow her back. They brought in this enormous wrecker ship. Oh, you can't have that capitalized. Yeah, he would say humongous, not absorbent. They brought in this humongous wrecker ship, twice as big as my first ship, the HMASS Gant. The Gant's 10 Polybiuses long. They sent another platoon to check out the whale, even though they were right at the tail end of the breach window and the Moravini's comm told them not to. Mm-hmm. Oh, we'll change it then. Oh, hold up. Wait, did I? Oh. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, yeah. That's why we're changing this up, huh? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a tough sentence. You better believe it. Moravini was too busted up to continue. They had to tow her back to dock. They brought in this humongous wrecker ship to tow us. He was twice as big as the first ship I ever served on. Yeah, should be a comment after Com didn't want to. Okay, so here I'm making a change here to this segment. I want to add more. I want to add more unreasonableness from the smarts, like where Gunny is like super rad sick, and they're still trying to get him to go and fly missions and shit. I like that, and I think we were trying to do too much in that paragraph. It's kind of like a long chapter right here. And I hope I'm not losing readers because there's a lot of shit contained. You know, we have like this big flashback and everything. But yeah, like Gunny tells stories to his Marines in some part to try and build like a backstory for everything that's happening. The Smarts thought the whale was too damaged to jump back. They wanted me to lead another mission, but I was too sick. So they brought in another whaler, the HMASS Bostov. Bostov's comm didn't want to fly the mission. He even filed an official protest, but the smarts told him to get chucked. Well, he was right. The cut-up whale went nova. There ain't no HMAS Bostov anymore. Lucky for me, I was busy puking myself inside out on the wrecker ship. Yeah, cool. They still let you be a gunny after all that? Lefty asked. I'm here, ain't I? But you chucked up so bad. No rudder, crashed the rats. Killed Humies. Why didn't they lock you? Gunny scowled at Lefty, wondering if he ought to whop him for insubordination. Member was climbing down the ladder. Nothing had happened for all of his efforts. They were going to have to bust through the disc somehow without igniting the silane. Gunny drew a deep breath. Let me tell you something, Lefty. They need us. They kept me as Gunny for the same reason the comm cut Bonzo loose from the brig. We deliver. Most Gunnies chuck up and get deaded after less than 3 missions. The 37's been out there. The 37th Tard's been out there about okay. The 37th Tards have been out there and back more times than any other platoon in the whole Navy. We're special. Yeah, we're special, all right, Bonzo said. And there was a smattering of applause from the majority. And there was a smattering of applause from the Tards who couldn't understand sarcasm. Gunny shot Bonzo a look. Go get some tanks, Bonzo, he ordered. Go get some tanks, Bonzo, Gunny ordered. Tanks ain't my yob, Bonzo replied, and Gunny did a double take. He tapped the stripes on his shoulder, wondering what the hell had gotten into Bonzo. It is now, he said, staring Bonzo down. Gunny wasn't about to take that jit. In 2 seconds, he was about to find out just how reinforced the WAP plate really was. I think we spell WAP plate in like 3 or 4 different ways throughout this story. But Bonzo broke first. A chorus of whistles followed him as he went out the airlock to bring the tank cart. Cool. So that was chapter 7. Let me see how much progress we've made so far. Oh, from is missing? Okay, yeah, we'll go back to that. Okay, so we're up to 13,000 words. we're closing in on about the halfway mark here. So just like 2 or 3 more days, and we should have a finished edit for our fucking story. That'd be amazing. Yeah, I can see that. What are we at here, page-wise? So that brings us to page 55 of 119. There was a smattering of applause from tards who couldn't understand sarcasm. From the tards who couldn't understand sarcasm. Yeah, I like that. Oh, all right. So yeah, this is I guess day 3 right here of this story. So what do we say that we had gotten to? I forgot already how many thousand words we had edited. I think it was like 16,000 or something like that. So that's pretty decent. That's like we're editing about 5,300 words a day. It's not nothing, you know. I definitely can't write 5,300 words a day, but yeah, we've been at a pretty good clip, and I've gotten some good suggestions and so forth. So I'm gonna sign off here, but yeah, just don't, everybody out there, don't chuck up today. Keep it real. 1,300 words. Okay, so 1,300 words is less good. 1,300 is us getting about 4,300 words a day. Still a pretty decent clip. What do we start this at, like 6:15 or 6:20 or something like that? We got about 3 hours done today. I'm satisfied with that. All right, so Spateywa, thank you for your help there. Shout out to all the new people who subscribed and joined in on this and so forth. To anybody who's morally offended by this, suck my dick. I will fight you IRL. So Spateywa says this is in better shape than Gravid. Way better? No way. No, Gravid was such a better book than this. This is just me fucking around. But I think a big part of this too is Gravid is like a big stretch, right? For me, Gravid was me like trying to write something emotionally resonant, and this is just me fucking around with Space Marines. So, but another part of it too is that I had 3 years of writing and editing after, because we wrote this after we wrote Gravid. So this has everything that I learned from writing Gravid, just in terms of like just errors and so forth. And I've gotten like stronger at POE and so forth. So this should be better than Gravid because I had the 3 years of writing Gravid to learn to do this. Remember, we started the story. We did this in the month of December, just as our like 30-day project to write after we finished Gravid. And then I think I wrote another just about like 5,000 more words of it at the end of the in the interim between completing the edit and here. In terms of how much editing is needed, well, there's less rewriting. It's a much more straightforward story, to tell you the truth. It really is. It's trying to do something like very, very simple. It's not calling on people to care a tremendous amount about the characters. It's not doing any of the things that needed to be done in Gravid. And like I have difficulty writing from the perspective of a 16-year-old girl. There's no difficulty for me in writing from the perspective of a retard. It's not a stretch for me. So shout out to these Space Marines, and shout out to all our special needs chatters out there and so forth. Love you all.